And well, it's wait, yeah, we're live. Woo! So, welcome. This is the first episode of Board Game Club. I couldn't think of a better name, but at least you know what this is. It's a board game club, just like a book club, where hopefully at least once a month we will pick a board game, play it, and then talk about it to death, or at least close to death. And we will discuss opinions and what we think about it and all other fun stuff related to it. I'm Adam Dork, if you don't know who I am, but if chances are, if you know anything about NT board games, you do. With me, I have two guests. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Robin, I'll let you first.
Okay, hi, I'm Robin. I play some board games, not a huge amount, but I'm excited to learn more about them. And I think I've played this game we're about to talk about twice, so
that's once more than
however many opinions I can share about that.
You know, you've played it, and that's more than some people can say.
That's very true.
And
yep, and now you have me. My name's Gerardo or Gerardo, however you want me to call me. Yeah, I play board games with Adam fairly regularly, and I think my first time playing this one in particular was what was it, like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago?
Yes, something like that. Yeah. Within like the weekish time.
Yeah.
So, if you're not aware, we're going to be talking about Room 25 Escape Room. So Room 25 is a base game, and then there's Season 2, which was an expansion. And this is kind of like an expansion on the expansion, except you don't need Season 2 to play this. Anyways, Room 25 Escape Room. And basically, Room 25 is a scenario of a game where it's in the future, and you're kind of all on a TV show, and you're trapped inside this 5x5 grid that shifts and moves around in rooms. You don't know what's in each room, but they are typically either death or safety or really bad stuff. So you're navigating, and you're trying to get everybody out of the room. Now, how in board game form, it's a programming game, so you program your actions. You don't know who's programming you. And also, with this expansion, it adds on escape room, so you're trying to escape in this puzzle-oriented fashion. So, Robin, since you played twice, what was your initial reaction to hearing about the game?
So my first thought was that it was probably going to be way over my head, because I tend to be bad at games where I have to try to think ahead and like plan out my moves and everybody else's moves and then anticipate that. And I think I've played it both ways. So I think I've played it once where you're all trying to maybe kill each other, and then once where it's just straight co-op. Okay. And yeah, I think that's, I don't know. I think it's sort of an interesting way of playing. I don't think I'd ever actually played a programming game before either. So that took some getting used to of, you know, thinking out my moves and not just sort of impulsively doing what came to mind. So a little intimidating. I don't think that I understand it much better than the first time I played it, especially with like the puzzle solving aspect. There was a lot of conversations about solving the puzzles that I didn't really know what we were talking about, but just trying to be helpful. So yeah, but it was interesting. I would like to keep playing it and see like how. I also played the same character both times, which probably didn't help me as much as I thought it would. So I'd like to kind of try some other of the special abilities and see if that made a difference.
Yeah, so each of the characters, the base game has 6, the Season 2 expansion adds 2 more, and each character has a special ability. And like it could be like carrying somebody, pulling somebody, like controlling robots, disappearing so you can't be carried or pulled, or they're
do not take that
some of them are more game changing than others. Gerardo, your reactions to this?
So
since you played the original a couple times, right?
No, that one was my first time playing that one. Yeah, I haven't yet.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. So let me start with the character. Like, I totally should have listened to Brett. He was the guy that was there. He said this class of character will not play well with, cooperative and the puzzle solving. And I was like, you know what? Let me try it. And sure enough, I could not use my special ability at all, which was disappearing because there is a fair amount of, cooperation that needs to happen to make the thing most effective. And I think another person
Fully.
took another. Yeah. Yeah. And the person to
Yes.
my left took a character that also wasn't as good. So I think that kind of handicapped us from the beginning. As
There was a couple of handicaps. We'll get into that later. To go back to the character aspect, is the base game of Room 25 typically, well, base game and Season 2, you typically are playing suspicion mode where there is potentially a traitor, so you're not necessarily always working together. And then we tried to stress this when we first started playing. Hey, this is a cooperative game. This is cooperative. We are all together. We kept on saying that loud. We're all working together. Cooperation.
There were some trust issues in the group. There was some.
Yes.
Oh, that's to put it lightly.
I guess moving on. What were some of your favorite things about playing this game?
A few favorites. So I like the aspect of you don't know what room you're going into unless you peek first, but you don't necessarily need to peek. I mean, you have the option of just barging into the room, which worked out for us a couple of times until the end, in which I died a fiery, horrible death. But that
It came back to life.
exactly.
All
You
right.
guys unfortunately brought me back because we were all screwed at that point. But yeah, no, like that mechanic of not knowing what room you're going to encounter and like the random aspect of it, I think lends itself to a lot of replayability. Just like the cards and how the puzzles work out, just like make it very rich in terms of, okay, we're trying to all figure out this puzzle. It's not just one of us trying to head off for himself and like do his own thing and screw all the rest and I'll win anyway. Like now you actually have to work together. On the flip side, I do believe like that could very easily be overwhelmed by an alpha gamer, and they just take over the group and like start assigning actions, and like if you don't listen to that person, then you make the team lose, kind of thing. So like that's the flip side of it, is because of the mechanics. I think that game is more prone to it than some of the more recent offerings that have come out from like different publishers.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that. Mostly because I don't think I've had a lot of experiences with like one person just sort of dominating the game or like bossing everybody around to that extent. But yeah, if you had somebody who was just going to sort of go their own way and say, all right, I'm solving the puzzles and you all just kind of do it, then yeah, it takes some of the playability out of it. But or if you have somebody, Gerardo, who refuses to believe that it's cooperative and just kind of
I have no idea who you're talking about.
doesn't listen to anybody.
This is the first time I'm doing one of these, and I forgot. I probably should explain the game more. So Room 25, as I said, is a programming game. You have certain actions. You have 4 actions, 4, and a specialty action. There's move into another room. There's push somebody into another room, which that was one of the first things Gerardo did on his turn. And the cooperation game is push somebody. There's peeking into another room, and there's moving the room around because it's a 5x5 grid that moves around. And how the game is set up is you start in the center room that can never move, and all around it there are tiles laid face down so you can't see what they look like, and you have to peek in the room to see where you're moving. Otherwise you're just moving in a room that could instantly kill you. So there are a large number of tiles, so it's random and makes it unique each time. What this expansion does, it's kind of like a modular expansion box because it has 3 different ways of play. There's one where you can just add tiles that mix up the game. There's another that's predetermined puzzles to get out of the room, and then the one we played is there are 8 rule cards. Well, there's a total of 20, but we're getting 8, and we have to make the cube, the 5x5 grid, exactly matching all 8 cards to escape. Like the cards would be, hey, there has to be green tiles all in a row, or everybody has to be in the same room, which is typically easy, or the room cannot be at this position or this position. So that's a little more background about what the game is, instead of just us talking about like, oh, it was different. It was, this and this happened in cooperation. So, so what was the most unique thing you felt, about the game to you guys? Obviously, for not to speak for Robin, but like programming, since you've never played a programming game, that would probably be pretty unique.
Yeah, that was one, like, again, just having to sort of think out your movements and the fact that you don't do both of your actions at once. So the fact that you have to program both of your moves, but then, like, so especially if you're not playing cooperative, you don't know what everybody else's move is going to be. So if I go into a room and then my second plan is that I'm going to carry somebody into another room, but they've moved before I get there, then I've wasted one of my turns. And it's a pretty limited number of moves. So yeah, I find myself wasting moves a lot because I'm just not used to, again, having to think that far ahead and trying to predict what every other person is going to do. And then because the turn order changed as well, so it's not like it's always the same person going first. So yeah, I felt like that was like a lot to keep in my head at once. So yeah, that was it for me.
Huh, interesting.
Did you find anything unique, Gerardo? Because you've played programming games before, correct?
Oh yeah, a lot of them. So like, one thing I liked about this game in particular is like, yes, there is a programming aspect, but you are highly dependent upon the other the actions the other players take, more so than I think in a lot of games I've played that require programming. Like, for example, I've done Robo Rally, and yes, the other players do influence what you do, but your robot is doing this set of actions that you define. It's not like you're trying to achieve a common goal. I mean, they are fighting against you. But like this one in particular, it's like, I think we had the case where Robin and I in the beginning, I'll raise my head here and claim, I did push you into a room without knowing what it was.
It's fine, I forgive you.
But it did turn out okay. And we did find a clue.
Luckily, there was a number of people who went before you that could be like, oh, that's a good room. Because when you peek, you're not allowed to say, this is a safe room. You just kind of have to give like kind of subtle suggestions on what the room might be.
That is true. Yeah, so I guess actually that was a unique aspect of it, is not being able to tell the other players what the room was, and like having to trust, oh no, they're really telling me that this is a bad room, I shouldn't go in here. Like I find that I have trust issues when I'm playing these kinds of games. Like I think you noticed.
That's why we gotta stress cooperation, immediate cooperation.
Hey, I was Brett and I have played a number of times different things, and it's always him against me, so
I will say I found it interesting that they kept that rule even for the cooperative. Like, it makes sense when you're working against each other to not have to say explicitly what room is what, but when you're working together and the point is you're trying to find specific types of rooms, it did seem odd to me that you couldn't say, like, yes, this is a good room because it's safe, or yes, it's good because we need to uncover it right now. So that felt a little... Yeah.
I fully agree with you on that.
I mean, I'm curious if... on one hand, it's easier to just be like, we're not changing the rules. You know how to play the base game, you know how to play this.
Sure.
The other hand, I feel I'm wondering if not giving that information immediately and making kind of people guess for it and also find out for themselves, maybe that tries to help eliminate the alpha player aspects.
Oh, that's a good point.
That could be.
Because if you're just like, oh, here, it's this one, then you're like, oh, well, I already know, let's not go there, or let's go there, and be like, oh, well, like, it could be this, or this. So therefore, people still get to make their own decisions.
Yeah, because you are depriving information from like the group, decision consensus, whatever you want to call that. So yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that one.
So you think these unique aspects work to benefit the game?
Yeah, I think they do. Ooh, the other thing I noticed, and Robin, you'll have to excuse me about this one, but I have a miniature, like a game mini obsession. I love painting them. I noticed that the game had very detailed minis as far as like, for just like a game of that caliber. I must have been looking at them for like a good 10-15 minutes at the beginning of the game. And I was just like, hey, this is really cool. They made these really detailed. So like that's another aspect that people might like.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the
No,
niche miniature painters out there.
Were they that detailed? I guess I didn't hold on.
For the scale.
Excuse me.
That's it.
Thank you. All right. So it was. Is there anything about the game that kind of? I mean, maybe it's just me, and I like to be immersed, and I like themes, and I don't know about you guys, but theme is a big part of why I play board games. Is there anything that drew you out of it, or if that's maybe that's not even a big deal, and to you the theming wasn't that big of a deal?
So I think the way the puzzles are laid out in the cards was kind of like a jarring element. Because I mean, you're in this like very detailed environment, and like the tiles are really, they're awesome as far as the artwork and whatnot. It's like you're in this like detailed environment. All of a sudden, you have like these symbols on like the puzzle that you're like trying to figure out, and I was like, I don't know if these go well with the tiles themselves and like the game. But that's like very minor. I mean, I'm sure they did the best they could as far as, hey, we're trying to accomplish this with puzzles and all that stuff. But I feel like that could have been somewhat better. And for colorblind gamers, I know I had a hard time figuring out what colors they were trying to tell me to take or not take or like do. So like that was a point against it from my standpoint.
Was there any? I mean, I guess this is good that you are partially colorblind. Is it partially?
Oh, no, very much so.
Okay. Well, so what?
Have you ever ridden in the car with me?
Kind of. Nope. Nope, I don't think so. I guess that's could take away from the experience. Like, how are you affected by being colorblind and playing this game?
So, a lot of the tiles in the reference sheet I was trying to figure out, and I was looking and it's like, oh, red tiles, yellow tiles, green tiles. I was like, okay, I can't really tell the difference between the red or the green. I was like, yeah, I was just like, I don't. So I kind of spent a long time looking at, okay, this tile has like this kind of pattern and it's showing these like, these icons and like this room. So I like was trying to trace it back. But like initially it wasn't, apparent to me. So that kind of like took a little bit away from, okay, I'm in this, like you mentioned earlier, in this environment and like I'm fully immersed. It was like, I'm trying to figure out more than I should be needing to right now. Yeah, like they could have just put like a skull, some other symbol or something else to like denote the difference.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's a better symbol, because skull tends to be death, and like the mortal chamber, which is like you enter this chamber, you instantly die. I feel like putting a skull would just think, oh, you instantly dead.
That's fair.
I mean, they could even just number them, though. I mean, like danger level 1, 2, or 3.
Oh yeah,
it's not perfect, but I mean, just something that's not. And then they could keep the colors as well, because
most of the people.
I've read 3.
Because actually, it's funny because I mean, obviously, I'm not colorblind, and I actually I look at colors before I look at most other things. So like. I don't actually often think about that when I'm playing a game. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to have it color-coded, but also just say, instead of red, yellow, or green, to have it be 1, 2, 3, or, a letter.
Yeah, that would be awesome if they had.
Yeah, we have 2 colorblind people in our group, so therefore it actually makes me think more about it, because otherwise I wouldn't think about it. What was I about to say? Oh... That's not good. Colorblind, colors, yeah, numbers. I mean, just call me stupid American for this, but like, are numbers all the same in every? Numbers all the same in every language, right?
Yes, for the most part, I think.
The reason why.
I mean, not every language, but I think You
Like
know,
the new numerical, not like 3, obviously. Obviously 3 is
Yeah.
not gonna do. The only reason I say that is because at least the first two, like Room 25 and Season 2, they all come with like rulebook and character sheets for like 8 different languages. I'm not even joking. Like I just have like a wad of like stuff this thick that I'm just tossing out every time I get a new Room 25. They just make one box and like here's all the instructions in there. There's French, Spanish, Chinese. I guess there's multiple like Asian, Japanese, Chinese languages and French, Italian. So it's all over. So I didn't know if numbers would be an issue there. I wonder if that's why I went with colors.
yeah. I mean, I think that is probably typically part of it. Sorry, I'm just going to close this door because my dogs are barking. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like at least if you had a combination, you could sort of people could pick and choose what worked for them. But what do I know?
Yeah. So, Robin, was there anything that kind of took you out of the experience?
Anything that what? Sorry.
Was there anything that took you out of the experience of like?
I mean, I don't think so. If anything, it felt very real because I feel like if I were in some sort of murderous death trap situation, I would be the person who's like, wait, what? What did the clues mean again? I'm sorry, I lost the criteria. Like, what are we looking for? Like, I wouldn't survive a Saw movie, you know? Like, I'm not... So, no. I mean, if anything, I think it just reminded me that I'm not cut out for intense survival situations. But, no, I mean, I think atmospherically there wasn't anything that, like, seemed incredibly out of place to me or, you know, stopped me from enjoying it.
So just FYI, the Room 25 is essentially like loosely based off of a movie called Cube,
which I've heard of and not seen.
Yeah, it's Cube. It's directed by Vincenzo Natali. Anyways, he's famous for doing Splice and Cube. Those are and Nothing, but Splice I think is his biggest movie. Anyways, just since you mentioned the whole like horror movie and surviving that, it just kind of made me think like, oh, maybe I should plug in and make sure people know like, hey, this is kind of something. And if you're a cool idea would get everybody in the mood is watch the movie and then play the game, or watch the movie while you're playing the game. We're like, everybody watch this movie, we're going to play the game, because it is like that aspect. And so for me, there was one thing that really kind of broke me out of the game, and you guys touched on it, and I just kind of want to wait till like the end, or like till like a right time to talk about it, and that's the alpha gamer aspect of it. And towards the end, both times playing it, I felt it really took me out of it, and like it really kind of slowed things down and reminded me of like I don't like alpha gaming.
Mm-hmm.
So towards the end, like everybody's just kind of like trying to figure out the puzzle, but it ends up like somebody else is telling you what you're doing for your turn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably the most optimal thing, but it's still kind of like, oh, well, I'm not really doing this. And I feel like a Pandemic is another game that's really big on them.
Yeah, Pandemic is right for that kind of thing to happen.
So, but not talking about other games. We're supposed to focus on this one, but that's my bad for bringing it up. But that's like everybody. I will admit, although we all, like somebody was telling you what to do for your move, mostly everybody had the opportunity and did chime in with what we should be doing to solve the final, to make sure everything agreed.
Right. And I feel like even when there was a little bit of there was like a couple people who clearly knew much more about what was going on with the puzzle than I did. But like, even at that point, I mean, I still felt like I could jump in and say, okay, well, I can do this special action. Does that help anybody? Like, this is what I can do. Yeah. Is that going to solve the puzzle? Because if so, I can move over here and do it. And yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like I wasn't doing anything. It just felt more like, okay, well, I don't really understand what's happening at this point, but I can still like offer my assistance. And yeah.
It definitely go ahead.
Oh, yeah, and I was going to say that a lot of it has to do with the group that you play with, it seems like. Like, I know that we seem to be in a good group of people. Like, as far as, like, we respect each other's decisions and we're open to receiving input, and we really are trying to solve the puzzle but not overwhelm and like tell people how it shall be done. So like that was good. But yeah, but I fully agree with Robin. Like, well, at least for our group, yeah, you had chances to like provide input and like, hey, this is what I think, and like people will listen to you. So like that is a good thing. But if you're with a group of people that is not, doesn't tend to do that, or is not amenable to listening to your opinion, if they consider like, no, this is the right path, then you're screwed, because one person will override it, and it's just like then it's no fun for anyone except for that one person anymore.
Yeah, initially going into this part of the conversation, like I was like kind of dreading it because it was going to bring out this alpha gamer aspect, and like now kind of talking about it kind of puts it in a different light and just kind of makes the game seem two-party. And like you have the initial part, like, hey, here's how the game is playing. You're programming your own actions. You're doing your own thing. You're doing that, and it's all you. And then at a certain point, it just kind of clicks and the game changes.
Yeah. Once it switches from like exploration to puzzle solving.
Well, not even. Yeah. I guess you're correct. It is more puzzle solving, but it's becomes less about like programming your own actions and more about figuring out the puzzle. And I guess the more you are into figuring out that puzzle, the more you won't be as affected by someone programming your moves, more or less.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So,
and I mean, it does have that sort of built-in safety of, even if there is somebody who's saying, hey, I think we should all do this, I mean, you can still just go off script and be like, nope, I'm going to push somebody into a room. Screw it. Like, you don't have to listen to them. It's not like they can control you. They can just, scold you severely.
Yes, you very much can.
So that's I feel like that's a much better way to look at it, and also it's more accurate. Makes it better than other games that suffer from alpha gaming, because whereas, I mean, I guess the other games you're also doing a puzzle, but like Pandemic, it's also puzzly, but this is everybody's seeing the same results, and it's not a question of what card's going to come next, because everybody knows what tiles are out there, unless you haven't revealed them like we didn't. But that's a whole nother story.
That's just silly.
So we played this twice. I played it twice. I think So Robin, you played it twice or just once?
Yes, twice.
Okay. The first game we made it out alive. We successfully got out. I don't know if we had 2 turns or 1 turn left. Second game, we didn't make it out. Gerardo tried to kill himself, but then we brought him back to life and said, "Ha, you're stuck with us."
I did try.
From this experience of winning and losing, how do you feel about the ending? Like, was it satisfying? Did you have issues with it? Like, what was your just overall feeling once it was done?
I feel like the first time around was a little bit more discouraging, just because it was the sense of like, oh, I've never played this game before, and there was a, sneaky competitive element that I'm not always great at, and like I kind of felt like, okay, well, I landed here because of my own mistakes. I feel like the second time around, because it was a team effort, I felt more like, well, we're all in this together, and we can sort of spend our last turn like jumping into death rooms and hanging out with robots, and like we did this to ourselves, and it's not like there's one or two people left behind and the other people are like, well, screw it, we won. So, I mean, I think in that sense, like, even though we didn't do as well, I think it was still a satisfying game to play because it was still fun. There was still that, like, camaraderie there.
So you like losing better than winning is what you're saying.
Well, I didn't win either time. I like losing as a group better than I like losing individually.
Okay.
Because at least then I'm in good company.
Yeah, did we decide, hey, we escaped except for one person? Was that? Or were we joking about that?
Was I the only one who was trapped?
I can't remember the first game. It's been a while ago. Well, Gerardo, how would you feel about the ending? Like,
it was kind of anticlimactic. I mean, we were like working towards this all this time, and all of a sudden, it became very evident. In like the last 3 or 4 turns, I was like, there is no way. And so it was just like, well, this is fun. Let's try to send robots to their death, and the robot did die. So I accomplished that at least.
yeah, I'm kind of negative on the ending. Like, so once again, to go back to there's 20 like placement cards, for lack of a better term, they're like, or clue cards, and every time you go to an empty room, you flip over a new card. And there's 8 of them, so 8 cards are going to get flipped over. And then you have to go these 1 of 4 secret code rooms. And when you go in the code room has to match 2 of the special cards. And so you successfully do those cards, like, okay. Well, at the end of the game, to escape, you have to be in the exit room, and it has to satisfy all 8 requirements. And some of them are very forgiving. Like, one of the cards is, everybody has to be in the same room. Well, everybody's escaping, so they have to be in the same room. Or everybody has to be in the same column or same row. Well, those are easy. But since there's 20 of them, you're using less than half. It becomes an issue when it's like, you can't be X in these 10X places. You can't be there. Or you have to have, every room around you has to be different. Or there has to be like red rooms in a row. So it does, as Gerardo was saying, at a point you're like, is this even possible? And it's a very, I don't win a whole lot of games, so I have no problem losing a game. But normally when I lose, it's because I made bad decisions and not because the game potentially made it impossible just because of the option of cards.
Yeah.
The only other way I could see around is if like I stacked the deck, and maybe I need to go through those cards going forward and just be like, all right, this card seems impossible, and I'll just exclude it, and like maybe have like 15 cards or 12 cards to pick from instead of 20, because I'm sure that some of those are awful. So. I don't. How do you guys share the same feeling about this, or am I just crazy talking?
No, I feel like I would agree with you. There's a definite like a predetermination of the game. Like, very quickly into the game, it's like, okay, we're either going to do really well or we're going to be completely screwed over by the fact that the cards and like the combination of this is where the rooms are placed and this is what cards we have is just going to not work. Which I think for us kind of did, but kind of didn't. Like, I know there was one combination of things that were just like, how do we make this work? And so that is entirely up to the game. And you have, considering how few turns you have, I think that is what highlights it the most is, you have a very limited number of turns. And so your actions have to be almost perfect. And if you don't accomplish your actions or the game doesn't let you accomplish those actions in the manner in which you have to, then all of a sudden you're like, well, there's no way we can win this, and we're just like carrying out the motions almost.
Yeah. Robert, do you agree?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I don't necessarily mind losing a game when like just the wrong cards come up or it's just bad luck, but yeah, I mean, I think it does get to about like if you're halfway through the game and you already know you're all going to lose and you're just playing it anyway, I mean, that can take some of the joy out of it, I think. So, yeah, and I think it maybe even like, especially for first time players, like when they're still learning like the puzzle aspect or anything, like the fewer complicated things to keep in your head, the better, I think, at least until you get the hang of it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. I mean, I don't know. I'm also very used to losing games. So if I'm losing for whatever reason, I tend to just be like, well, okay, this is happening. It's fine. We're still hanging out and having a good time. But yeah, I could see people getting frustrated by that, especially if they're newer, they haven't played a game like that before. And it was a very small number of moves too. I mean, that is a lot of pressure, especially like if you're newer to a group or newer to a game, like feeling like, oh my gosh, if I waste one move and we lose the game because of that, that can be intense. So yeah.
It does help that Room 25 is like, really good game. I really like it. I don't know how I necessarily feel about this expansion. I almost feel that the base game is much better. Like, this is something I would maybe bust out every once in a while. So I'm actually surprised that neither of you played the base game, mainly because maybe more so surprised Gerardo, because I tend to play this game a lot, I feel. So I guess I had a question lined up about like the base game, like how this affects your thoughts about the base game. But if neither of you have played the base game,
well, let me tell you.
Yes, tell me all about your thoughts about Suspicion. So the base game, the main way to play the base game, and it definitely kind of like eliminates alpha gaming, is that there is potentially, I mean, there's different ways to play like solo and cooperation, but the real way to play is Suspicion, where there are potentially 2 traders depending on how many players you're playing with. And how it's done is like there's tiles and you just shuffle them all out and you hand them out, so you don't know who's a traitor. And like, especially if you play with an odd number of people, there's potentially a traitor or 2 traitors, or only 1 traitor or no traitors, and so no one knows who's on whose team. And that definitely eliminates the alpha gaming. You'd be like, oh, you should do this, but like I don't. Why should I do that? You could be the traitor or guard in this case. They're called guards. So I mean, knowing this, how does it affect your feelings?
I feel like I would really enjoy the base game just because I'm more competitive by far than I am cooperative.
Oh, Jordan.
Jordan, you were kind of playing the base game, though.
Yes.
You were already there.
You pushed more than once.
Things happen. You like slip onto whatever spill there was in like the room, and like all of a sudden, Robin goes out the door. What can I say?
No, well, it's fine. I could have carried you, but no. That's my other thing too, is again, like, because I played the same character both times, I feel like I would want to branch out, because I keep having this thing where like, hey, I can carry people from room to room, and everyone's like, we can just push each other to the rooms, it doesn't matter, we don't need you. It's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Well,
we did work out a mechanic that was useful. What? We did work out a mechanic because Robin, I think, went before myself a couple of times. She would carry me into a room, and then I would push her, meaning that she has 2 movements effectively for the price of 1. Yeah.
True.
See, that's why she got pushed into a lot of rooms.
The carrying is very vital. We just weren't in situations that it became useful. Like, I had the come hither big boy where I pull somebody into another room. But we didn't. That's even worse, so to speak. Because I remember playing as the carrying guy once recently, and I was kind of like, I'm just going to carry people everywhere and do it just to do it. But it was helpful.
Yeah.
So I think, and the best part is doing the carrying thing when you're playing with traitors and be like, haha, I'm carrying you into the mortal chamber and you both die. I did that as a guard once.
Oh, nice.
we lost because I thought I ended up carrying like a guard into the room or something like that. And
Ouch.
did not go. So, would you guys play this expansion again?
Yeah.
I meant to preface all this. Honesty, do not lie. I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to disconnect you and never talk to you again if you hate my games. But, I mean, would you play this again? And, like, on that same scale, if you would play again, would it be something that you'd like, oh, sure, I'll play if people were playing? Would you actively seek it out, or would you ask to play it? Loaded question.
I feel like I would happily play it again. Oh, sorry. I feel like I would happily play it again if it was offered. I think just because it's something that's not like in my wheelhouse gaming wise, I don't know that I would actively seek it out or request it. But I mean, it's definitely enjoyable to play. It's just one of those games where I sort of go in knowing, okay, I'm not going to do well. But again, it's like as the social experience part of it and just trying to learn a mechanic I'm not familiar with. I mean, I don't know. I tend to want to give games a few chances before I give up on them because I just assume it's me being bad at the game and not the game being bad at a game, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. No, I'd probably request to play the base version more so than the expansion.
We're not talking about the base game.
I know.
Expansion.
Yeah, no, but I definitely wouldn't be opposed to playing the expansion again. I mean, I like the puzzle aspect, and I feel like it has enough replayability to where, if you get a right group of people together, you would enjoy solving that puzzle and like trying to figure out, hey, game, I beat you finally. It's kind of like an Eldritch Horror syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Without as much flavor text. Well, without any flavor text.
Correct. And much, much simpler. Like, at least Eldritch Horror, you don't know that you're going to lose the game until the game beats the bejesus out of you, and like all of a sudden you lost 4 hours later.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, this is like you don't know until like an hour and a half later that you're just not going to win.
Yeah.
So, I've been on the fence, and like for the primary reason I mentioned, or the two, like the whole alpha gamer, like I'll have to play that again to see if the alpha gamerness is a good enough trade-off with the whole puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Like
people trying to figure out if that's okay trade-off, and then also about stacking the deck without whether stacking the deck is still enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
And just like if I eliminate too many of the really hard cards, does it become too easy? And like kind of like the whole math behind how much. I mean, I'm gonna play it again, but
I wonder if you added like a house rule, like to eliminate the alpha gaming part. Like maybe if whoever's taking their turn first in that round, maybe they're the person who coordinates with everybody and checks in and says, okay, like I'm going first. I think we should do this. What does everybody else think? So then it's not just like one person running the game, but I don't know. I don't know how well that would work out, but it's a way to sort of harness that at least. So if you have an alpha player, at least they feel like they're doing that some of the time, but then everybody else gets a chance to, I don't know how you feel about house rules in general, but.
Depends on what they are.
I don't know.
Not to derail of a different game, like Zombicide came out, the zombie game, kill all these zombies, and like they have this ranged rule where like, if you're targeting a space away from you, there's a hierarchy of who you target first, and the number one is always survivor, and then zombies, and then this other zombie, and everybody's like, oh, why would you shoot the survivor first? And like, I didn't want to change it too much where you could just like shoot any zombie you want, because there is a level up ability where you get to do that. So I just house ruled it like, oh, shoot, if you miss, you hit a survivor because they're struggling with a zombie. If you succeed, you hit a zombie. And then they actually use that, and like Zombicide Black Plague, and everybody's like, oh, the game's completely fixed because it has this rule. I'm just like, this is a house rule that people knew about ever since the first one came out. Mm-hmm. So some house rules are okay, but I'm sometimes skeptical because I feel like you're missing the point of the game.
Gotcha.
With certain house rules. The one house rule that came to my mind, and I don't know how to really implement it because of how the game works, is like potentially more than 8 different cards. As I said, like the cards you have to use to satisfy. If you have more than 8 options, you don't feel obligated to finish off the super hard ones.
That's true.
Mm.
But how do you manage that? I mean, there's a certain number of
There are only 8 tiles.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is if
like multiple cards per tile.
so. There's green tiles with question marks on them, and then there's also there are just blank rooms that have that. There's also green. You could put like empty room tiles and be like, "Hey." I mean, I guess you could designate 2 certain tiles, be like, "Oh, these 2 tiles are extra informal rooms, whatever they're called, EPHERMAL." Anyways, so that's the one issue of that house rule.
Mm.
I just feel like if it has a little bit more of an option, it would maybe rectify the issue at the end. Like, we're stuck with these bogus cards, we're not going to be out, and maybe that is the point of the game, or the theming of that expansion, where like you're not always going to be able to get out.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if people know that going in, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of nihilism here and there, as long as people are emotionally prepared.
I mean, we do emotionally prepare people for Eldritch Horror. And it's like, we're probably going to lose, but let's play this anyways.
Mm-hmm.
That's very fair.
So that's a way to put it. But I feel like at least with Eldritch Horror, there's like flavor to like, oh, or at least we're like reading this cool story, whereas there's not flavor here.
True.
Yeah, it's different when
and-
beat downstairs to beat down.
Yeah. And you can't add in a hidden trader mechanic because they'll just ruin everything.
Oh yeah. Well, it didn't. Well, yeah, I guess we kind of lost, but
I mean, you just like jump into the room. It's like, haha, I'm flying this everywhere. So you need everybody work. By flying, I mean scrolling and controlling and sliding everything out of there.
Yeah.
So
that's true. Yeah, and I guess if a person dies, then everyone loses, right?
yeah, that's what they said. We made a slight change because there is, if you're playing with season 2, there is a rejuvenation chamber which can bring people back to life.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, I think that's enough. We talked about the game. Talked about feelings. Any other last comments about this Room 25 escape room expansion?
I think it's a solid game. I mean, we had fun when we played it, even though we lost. So I mean, when it comes right down to it, what more can you ask for the game?
Sorry, my microphone is falling apart. Robin, your thoughts?
No, I mean, I would agree. I mean, for me, like, again, I just sort of go into most games assuming I'm not going to do terribly well. And like, as long as we can have fun along the way. I mean, our like last minute suicide moves for our last turn where we knew we couldn't win. And it was just like, well, I'll go hang out with my robot. I'll jump into the death room. I'm going to go over here because this seems like the best room to die in. I mean, it was fun. There was a nice camaraderie there. So
I agree.
yeah.
Cool.
It was good.
All right, well, that will do it for our first board game club. Finally got this under wraps. If you want to know about future board game clubs, join the Patreon. Patreon supporters will hear first about what game is going to be the next, so they could potentially play it, and they'll also know when this live chat happens, so they could participate and ask questions, and try to participate in more ideas going forward with that. But gotta start somewhere. So once again, thank you, Robin and Gerardo, for joining me. Hope you have
My
fun playing
pleasure.
the game and talking about it.
I know it's fun
And
talking about stuff.
until next time. Oh, did you have something?
Me? No. Okay.
Okay, sound like you both said something. So, but until next time, let's play some games.
Bye.
All right.